Welcome back to Balanced Health. Today's entire show is on healthy shopping. If you've ever wondered how to decode a product nutritional label, you're in luck. Joe's going to walk us through the basics of reading labels and making healthy shopping choices. And as I said before, this is a very popular segment of our show, Healthy Shopping. And look at all these products we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we just kind of pulled out the full Monty today, Shirley.
Yes,
we're going to go
did.
through everything from tomatoes to crackers.
It's true. Well, the first thing let's talk about labels. The very first thing you kind of see is serving size and calories. So why don't you kind of walk us through reading a label from there?
And those are kind of your first things, like you said. You'll look at calories. You want to be able to look at servings. A lot of companies will play games with serving size. Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen things where it's literally 4 crackers is a serving.
Oh, sure.
So, you know,
or
for you to...
one cookie.
Or one cookie. So you want to look at serving size, and then you want to check some of the red flags, sodium content, you know, fat content, and then just real quickly look at the ingredient list, and if it's anything longer than a couple sentences, put it back. When you see big, long paragraphs, put it back. Right there, Shirley, is going to eliminate half of the bad stuff.
I have to tell you, the other day I was using some Italian breadcrumbs, and I had been using them for recipes for years, and I just happened to read the label. I mean, I thought there were breadcrumbs in there. This many ingredients.
That's how they got you to breadcrumbs.
All kinds of horrible stuff in there. So now I'm using plain breadcrumbs, but...
Well, let's kind of hit our list here, Shirley. We'll start with tomatoes, and whether you say tomato or tomato doesn't really matter. The thing is that you want it to be a fresh tomato.
Right.
I found these canned tomatoes here, and what's ironic is one of the main ingredients in this canned tomatoes, the second ingredient on the list is high fructose corn syrup.
You're kidding me.
I'm
Are they
pretty
like
sure,
stewed tomatoes?
I'm pretty sure when God made tomatoes, He did not make them with high fructose corn syrup.
Well, they're sweet already.
That's totally unnecessary.
Tomatoes are sweet.
Totally unnecessary. That is just catering to the addiction of Americans and sugar. Genetically modified, you'll often see in canned tomatoes. Now, genetically modified foods is going to be the single biggest disaster of the 21st century. It'll be way bigger than cigarette smoking. It'll be way bigger than drug abuse. It'll even be bigger than some of the other ills of our society. Genetically modified food is going to change the landscape of health in our country.
We're talking about seedless grapes. We're talking about seedless watermelons, which I love both of those.
Well, you can be seedless without being genetically modified. What you're doing, you can breed watermelons until they no longer need seeds. But what you don't want to do is take the seed of that watermelon and clone it and genetically modify its natural DNA structure, if you will. Okay, it'd be like this is doing the same thing with humans. We jump over to green beans. You got the same thing over there with green beans. Another thing I noticed in this can of green beans is that the sodium in it was high, but it wasn't crazy high. But then I realized that there was only a couple servings per in that whole can. So you could easily eat that can. It's not a whole lot of green beans. In that case, now you're over your daily allowance for the sodium. And that's the main thing about canned vegetables is you will see a lot of sodium there to keep it fresh.
What about frozen ones? I mean, I use frozen green beans.
Frozen's fine. All they did is take that vegetable and freeze it. You know, the thing is, as soon as you unfreeze it, then you use them, okay? We'll jump over to carrots. These diced carrots, one of the things that was kind of interesting over here with the carrots is there's something in there called calcium chloride. And parenthetically, it says next to calcium chloride, used to firm up carrots.
You're kidding.
That's ironic because if you've ever grabbed a carrot, it's a pretty crisp thing to begin with. So
they cook it until it's mush, and then they put a chemical in it to make it
Right, then they try and snap it up back up for you. Again, it's common sense of going against God's design, okay? This is an underground vegetable, one of the few that grow actually underground, so you actually pull it up. Let's look at our lettuce. This is your typical head of iceberg lettuce, and then here you have some mixed greens with spinach and so on and so forth. Shirley, besides one looking obviously healthier than the other, it's good to know.
One's prettier than the other.
One's certainly prettier than the other. Iceberg lettuce is really a mutation of lettuces.
Really?
Yeah, and iceberg lettuce only contains about 1 gram of fiber in a complete head of lettuce. It's very inexpensive, which is one of the reasons why you'll see a lot of it on the marketplace.
Now, what's it modified from? I'm just curious.
It's from different original type of lettuce seeds. Many of the things that we eat are. And if you're mixing natural seeds with natural seeds, it's not such a bad thing. But the biggest thing about iceberg lettuce isn't so much what it has in it. With iceberg lettuce, it's really more what it doesn't have in it. There's just really not much going on there. It's barely, you might be able to consider it roughage, but it certainly has very little fiber content.
And even like romaine hearts look like it. They're about the same color, but they're really healthy. So
they're healthy. Just the richer the color, the darker the color, the more nutrients it absorbs from the ground. It's one thing you can always remember, okay?
Okay, what else do we have here?
Well, let's jump over to bread. You'll see 2 different types of bread there. One is Ezekiel bread. That's obviously the darker color bread. You'll actually see some nuts and some grains in there. We touched on that earlier in the show. This is made from a sprouted grain. So what happens is the kernel breaks and it goes into a sprouted form, and then the bread is cooked at a low temperature. Okay. So it's full of nutrition. It's a bread where I would tell people you still don't want to go crazy on it. You protein types, right? Because you're going easy on the starches and grains.
Still carbs, yeah.
But versus look at that bread next to it, Shirley. You can just look at that, and you don't have to be a nutritionist to see that is pretty much a worthless square of food, if you even want to call it food. That stuff is so light. You could take a loaf of that stuff and throw it into the air and it'll probably come right back at you.
A good rule of thumb is heavy is good, right?
Exactly. Heavy bread. It's got natural fiber in it. So, those are one of the things you can implement. And Ezekiel bread and grain breads are actually delicious. You can put nut butters on them like we talked about earlier, or organic peanut butter, and it makes a great snack.
And the neat thing about Ezekiel bread, it's available everywhere now. It's available in the grocery stores, any grocery store.
And it has a very low glycemic index. Now, we'll have a list of these foods on our Kylea's website. So let's jump over to our meats, okay?
Okay.
There you have the grass-fed beef versus the commercial beef. We've done the beef many times on the show. The grass-fed beef, see how nice and rich and red it is? Yes, it's just chock full of nutrients. And that other cow looks like he's got a lot of stuff in it that God didn't put in him.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Joe, because we always like to compare beef with buffalo. And
bison.
and we just actually had a holiday weekend and we couldn't find any buffalo, which is a good thing.
It is a good thing, and it's a great point to bring up, Shirley, because it shows you America wants to eat better.
Yes, they do.
They don't want to chew tree bark and have to sing Kumbaya and burn incense to be healthy, but they want to eat better. What do we talk about at the top of the show? The key word is what? Knowledge. And that's what we're portraying. There isn't one thing we've said here yet that is a great cataclysmic change in someone's life, or a great whole different paradigm that you have to live within.
Well, you do, change to organic when you can. And could I ask you a quick question? Because I think this is so important. If you can only choose a few organic items, because some people just can't afford it, to buy everything organic, what would be the most important things to choose organic?
Animal products.
Okay, so we're talking about the chicken
your big
right
stuff.
there.
Your beef, the macronutrients on your plate. The macro stuff on your plate. Your beef, your chicken, your dairy, raw milk. If you can get a good source for it, cheese made from raw milk, protein made from raw milk, organic beef. Now, one of the things about organic meat, there's quite a few different ranges. In fact, one of the people on staff here came out to me before and said, "Hey, this organization, it's called Trader Joe's, has bison patties now." And I said, yeah, and she said, they're real reasonable. And they are reasonable price-wise, but one of the reasons was, and it says right on the label, that the bison is grain-fed the last 3 months before slaughter. Now, that's not the end of the world. Okay, these bison have
it's to bulk them up, right?
It's to bulk them up.
Okay.
But grains the last 3 months of their life is better than grains their whole life, okay? So certainly...
And hemorrhoids and him.
Okay. Hey, never want to eat bison with those things. You always want your bison to be hemorrhoid-free.
Steroids and hormones. Hormones. Okay, because just the grain the last 3 months is not the end of the world, like you say. It's much better than.
But you see where it's going already. Okay, bison's becoming popular, so now we're going to start getting the price point on it down. Fact of the matter is that bison fills me up just fine, and the 100% free range is still available in many places. So,
but that's good that some people who couldn't afford the totally free range can afford
Again,
it.
We're still making better choices.
Yeah, let's talk about chicken real quick.
Chicken is huge because free-range chickens are allowed to roam free on the range, are allowed to eat, bugs and just run around, and they actually use rocks for digestion, little pebbles. That's the way God made them. We eat them the way God made them. Chicken are good for us. Commercial chicken is probably the worst possible thing you can eat. I would even tell you to eat commercial beef before commercial chicken. It's a small animal. They house all kinds of disease and infection as well as tumors. Very, very unhealthy stuff.
And I think we're going to talk about restaurants, what to order in restaurants and things. But, that's one of the things you have to be careful of is ordering chicken out, right?
Exactly, and that's why I don't do a lot of it. And you'd be surprised, which we're going to touch on, some of these fast food restaurants, when you order something from there, we're going to talk about caloric content. Okay. But real quickly, Shirley, before we end this segment here, pears, organic. Maybe not the prettiest, but you can see that this pear is not organic. A lot of sodium in these canned pears. Huge part of the show here. Snacks, we all like to have them. There's good ways to have them. Here's some healthy potato chips you can get at Whole Foods or Wild Oats or places like that. Made from organic potatoes, and they're made with cold oils. There's no trans fats, of course. This actually has some nutritional value. It's flavored with herbs.
Cool.
Paul Newman's Pretzels at least does not have enriched bleached flour. So again, this will all be on Kylea's site.
Choices, right. Well, It's time for another quick break. So if you'd like to order a DVD of this show, just call the number on your screen. And coming up, does a healthy sounding product name mean the food is actually healthy? Well, we'll find out when we return. Stay with us.